Hi, I'm Sean Marshall, and I'll be presenting what we learned doing this MARKSIM project. First of all, we learned that consumer preferences and our competition's preferences change each week, and so in order to keep up with that, we would have to change our numbers every week. Even though our numbers may have been good in one week, we still would have to change it and look at what the competition's doing and look at what our consumers want and change our preferences according to that. And so we would look at the reports. We'd have to look at the reports and then figure out what we wanted to do, judging from what our competition is doing and judging from what the way our consumer market is headed. Secondly, we learned that just because a market or segment is small in quantity, it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be profitable. For example, it looked like E2 focused mostly on creators, and although it wasn't a very large segment, they still were able to charge high prices for that and therefore bring in more profits each time they made a sale, whereas we focused on home users and students, and even though we were able to make a lot of sales, it wasn't at a very high price, so our profits, we didn't see as many profits as E2 probably saw with the creators. And so like we learned that maybe focusing on the large groups or the groups that look like they're growing the fastest isn't necessarily the most efficient way of selling our product and making the most profit. Instead, looking at who's going to buy the profit at the highest price and how we can make the most profit that way. We also learned that we maybe needed to manage our budget more and know exactly what we're spending on and why we're spending it on that, because there were a lot of times where we had a lot of excess money in our reserve funds, and so we really didn't know where we could put it, and so we'd throw it maybe into advertising and boost up our advertising or our customer service, which was good in the short run, but in the long run it kind of came back to bite us, because in the last two simulations we ran out of our reserve funds, and so we learned to maybe focus more on managing our budget and knowing where we're spending our money and why we're spending our money there, and if we're going to have enough money to do what we want to do the next time, and just better management of our spendings. Finally, as we got further into this project, we started to control a lot of the students and home users, and we decided that we wanted to branch out and try and pull parents into our consumer market as well, which worked in a sense because we did pull in a lot of parent buyers, but in doing so we sacrificed a lot of our student and home user buyers, and no longer were like major seller to them, and it was more spread between a couple other groups and us. And so we learned that while it would be good to branch out and reach more people, it also could be better to just focus on the groups that you started with in the beginning, and really like committing to them and selling, like getting the product to be exactly what they need, so that it'll spread more between other students and home users, and you'll develop a good name and people trust you and buy from you, rather than switching the product around and not being really trustworthy. And so in a way we kind of neglected the student and home user groups and obtained the parents, but we probably ended up losing more than we gained. So that's what we learned doing this project, and I'm going to pass this back on to the rest of the group.